Let's talk hoops. One of the biggest superstars in all of sports, but particularly in basketball, Kyrie Irving, been reinstated, if you will, to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, if y'all remember, October, Sean Marks, Steve Nash, GM, head coach, they said, look, Kyrie, if you're not going to get vaccinated, if you're not going to be a full participant on this team, you ain't going to participate at all, big dog. If you're not going to play in every game, then we don't want you in any games. But they changed their tone. Why? Because the Nets got punked. They got punked by Kyrie Irving, and it's embarrassing in my mind. They were playing a game of chicken. Kyrie Irving, he didn't even blink. And the Nets said, you know what, on second thought, Kyrie, sure, you can come back and play. Yes, there's been an outbreak, and teams have had to go to their 15th, 16th, 17th man on a bench that doesn't even exist, sign players to 10-day contracts. But look, man, if you are going to take a stand on something, which the Nets did, if you're going to take a moral stand, an occupational stand, then stick to it. Here's my thoughts on things. I don't make threats in life. I make promises. But it's become abundantly clear that the Brooklyn Nets, they made a threat that Kyrie Irving called them out on. And if I'm Kyrie Irving, I'm never looking at the Nets, Steve Nash, or Sean Marks with the same level of respect again, because I know this much. If you say something, you're probably not going to do it, because I got game. More than y'all ever thought I did. So that's my thoughts, that's my reaction. But I got to bring in an NBA expert, the one and only Slick Ric Bucher, been covering the game since 1993. Slick, what are your thoughts on the Nets bringing back Kyrie?
My thought is, I don't know how it is, Emmy, that you and I can agree so wholeheartedly on one aspect and so vehemently disagree on another. I wholeheartedly agree with you that the Brooklyn Nets are doing something very dangerous. They're setting a terrible precedent. They set a policy and they set a repercussion. You either get vaccinated or you don't get to play. Kyrie, you don't want to get vaccinated, you don't get to play. Kevin Durant, James Harden, any number of other players, they really didn't want to get vaccinated either. But they did because they knew what the terms of engagement were. And so they did. Well, now the policy has changed. To your point, why? Because of conditions. But here's the difficulty in that now once you make policy and standards conditional, now they apply to everything. Hey, everybody needs to defend. Everybody needs to play hard. Everybody needs to rebound. Oh, yeah? Well, everybody had to get the vaccine, and you changed your mind on that. So do we really have to? Where I disagree with you is, and this makes what the Nets are doing doubly troubling, is that Kyrie Irving didn't punk them. They got along just fine without Kyrie Irving. Last I checked, leading the Eastern Conference. Yes, their schedule, according to Basketball Reference, has been the easiest. Yes, they're playing KD 37 minutes a night and James Harden 36, and that puts them in the top 5 among minutes average per game. But all that said, they have been just fine without Kyrie Irving. Kyrie learned that, you know what, the NBA and the Nets, they can live without you, but maybe you can't have the same platform that you had without them. So while I agree with you that I have a problem, a big problem that I think the Nets are creating for themselves in making this decision, it's doubly troubling because they didn't have to make it.
Exactly right. I don't think they had to make it, but for whatever reason they did. The one and only Joy Taylor still here. What are your thoughts on the Kyrie Irving situation?
Oh, I disagree with both of you vehemently.
She's writing.
Yeah, I got lots of notes. Well, first of all, the one thing that I would agree with both of you on is don't make statements you have no ability to back up. Don't make promises you can't keep. So anytime a team or a coach comes out and says, we will not tolerate this, or we're going to do this, and it's an absolute statement, it's really a waste of time because it's an absolute statement until it's not. It's a policy until the circumstances change. And one thing we know about life is that change is inevitable. And we are in unprecedented times. So change is even more inevitable. Every hour we're getting new information, new policies, new changes to protocols, new treatments, new information, constantly change. And I get it. Most people are not comfortable with change. I'm very comfortable with change. I embrace change. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but that's life. And I'm a realist. And I'm not going to spend time whining and crying over things that I can't control. Like, for example, protocols and CDC advisements and what we're going to do with Kyrie Irving. The situation with Kyrie Irving was very clear. They didn't want him to be a part of the team halfway. It's hard to set lineups. It's hard to prepare for a player that's not available all the time. This is a really strange situation to build your team and chemistry around when you have a player that's only available on the road. But what happens? Change because of unprecedented times. We now have a variant that nobody could have predicted. It's extremely contagious. So as Emmanuel mentioned, you're going to your 15, 16, 17 guys, signing guys to 5-day contracts. It's chaos. And you have KD playing an average of 37 minutes per game and James Harden playing 36.5 minutes per game. That's not sustainable. This is a team that's trying to win a championship. So I don't look at this as the Nets backed off of their hard stance and they gave in. It was never a moral stance to begin with. This was never about pushing him to get the vaccine for any other reason than we want you available to play basketball. It wasn't about the Nets are pro-vax and Kyrie's anti-vax. Kyrie's not even anti-vax. He's just anti-vax mandates, at least according to him. So this isn't really about standing on principle. It's about teams making absolute statements they can't back up. For example, Bruce Arians talking about Antonio Brown. You couldn't keep that promise. And I think Bruce Arians is a good man and a good coach. I think he intended on drawing a hard stance for things like what Antonio Brown got involved in. But then he had 3 or 4 injuries to his wide receiver room. So it didn't matter what he wanted to do. It's more about absolute statements than it is about morals or anything else. It wasn't about the vaccine. It was about his availability to the team.
Yeah, correct. But the problem now is this. If you don't have leadership, if you don't have authority, if you don't have accountability on a basketball team, on any team, then you actually have nothing. I agree with some of what you said, but I got to push back on Slick's point. And really, this is just an enlightening, illuminating dialogue, because if you're on a team and I don't respect the coach, oh, then you're not really the coach. You just got a clipboard and you got a pen in your hand and you ain't wear shorts during the game. You wear joggers. If you say something and I don't actually believe you're going to do what you say, then I can punk you and you no longer run things. I run things. We've all been little children, Slick. I know at one point in time you have young ones now growing up to old ones. I know this much. If you say they're going to get timeout back in the day, you finna get a whooping in my household, you better get that whooping. If the parent says that a child is going to be punished for an action, then the child needs to be punished to the entire degree of the punishment that the parent stated. Otherwise, next time my mom or dad says they're going to punish me, I'm going to look at them like, psh, I'm going to punish you. And that's how Kyrie is looking at the Nets. Punish who? Because the Nets are the 1 seed. Yeah. The Nets have the best record on the road. Remember, the road is where Kyrie could not play. The Nets have the best record on the road. The Nets did not need Kyrie. However, they still have Kyrie. The great philosopher, Cardi B, once said, now she says she gonna do what to who? Let's find out and see. And that's exactly what Kyrie did to the Nets. The Nets said they was gonna do what to who? Let's find out and see. Yeah. And Kyrie saw that the Nets aren't really going to do anything. And as a result, it will be anarchy if Kyrie ever decides to make it be.
Yeah, look, here's the distinction, and it's a matter of timing. I agree with you that Kyrie Irving now has the opportunity to punk the Brooklyn Nets. He now has the ability to stand there and say, well, I ultimately got my way in spite of what you said. But that's the door that's been opened. That hasn't happened to this point. And you're right. Joy, when you talk about this not being a health and protocol decision, but a basketball decision, you're absolutely right. And this is a contrary basketball decision because it still stands on the fact that you're going to be bringing in and out a very big piece of this team. And yes, he can reduce the wear and tear on James Harden and Kevin Durant, but is he going to be effective? And how are the rest of these pieces going to fit when some games you have him and some games you don't? That's absolutely what you are trying to avoid. But in the big picture, they now know the credibility is shot, whether it's Sean Marks or Steve Nash, not just on protocol, not just on the vaccine, but on everything. And let's not forget where the bar is set for this team. It is set on winning a championship. Kyrie Irving referenced it, saying, look, we know the clock is ticking. We need to get after it now. Well, what I know about chasing championships and championship teams is that the pressure of winning a championship will find any crack in your foundation, no matter how small. If your team is not resolute and together and of one mind, if anybody has an ancillary agenda or an idea of what needs to be done, that pressure is going to find it and expose you. And that is what the Brooklyn Nets ultimately have created. And I would say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done the same thing. We now have conditional policies. And there was no reason. Joy, this is where I disagree with you.
Good point. It's a good
They
point.
didn't have to bring back Antonio Brown. Brooklyn Nets don't have to bring back. You can find, you may not be as good,
Slick.
but in the big picture, you might be better.
She getting her hair.
You might not be as good. Look,
Yes.
I don't want to sound soulless here, but I have to keep it real. These are competitive organizations who are fighting for a championship in a competitive business. We all know there's certain stuff that our certain colleagues can get away with that we can't get away with. And that's just the facts, because that's life. It's not about what's fair. Fair is for fried Oreos and Ferris wheels. In real life, nothing's fair. So you just make it how you make it. I don't judge what the Nets are doing because I never thought this was a moral stance that they were drawing in the sand. It wasn't about get vaccinated or you can't play. It's not even a Nets policy that he can't play at home. It's a New York City mandate that the Nets are forced to abide by. I don't think the Nets would not have him around if he was able to go into the building but be unvaccinated. I don't even think they would care. So to me, this is all about trying to win a championship. I don't think they have any less credibility. In fact, I respect people more who make adjustments based off of new information than people that dig their heels in the ground. Well, this is what I said. When I said it, I'm going to stick with it forever and ever and ever. Okay, well, let's let the world pass you by. And if you don't win a championship with Kyrie on the sideline, they're going to bring that up. So if I'm the Nets in this situation, I'm seeing the wear and tear on KD. I'm seeing the wear and tear on James Harden. I know everything that you're saying is true, which is why I agreed with them not playing him at the beginning of the season. The lineup can be weird. It's very inconsistent. What happens when you get into the postseason? You've got home games. He can't play in those. It's a very strange situation. But they've chosen from a basketball perspective to allow Kyrie to come back. Maybe even their two stars, James Harden and KD, said, look, we'd like Kyrie back. Let's figure it out.
Sure.
And so to me, it's not about respect or I can punk you or this, that, and the other. We're trying to win a championship here. All that stuff, that gets forgotten when there's a ring on the finger.
But here's the thing, a couple things. The first is, it's not as though the world was passing the Nets by. The Nets are quite literally still head and shoulders in front of everybody else at the one seed with the Bulls behind them a game and a half back. So nobody was passing them by. It wasn't a press decision. My issue is this, because I do agree with you, Joy, in the event that the Nets were like, yo, NBA Finals are tomorrow. Kyrie, we need you. Let's roll. Oh, I co-signed the decision to a degree wholeheartedly.
But you can't do that. You can't have him sitting around on the sideline, not in shape, not ready to come back.
What I think you also can't do is undermine and undercut yourself, right? You don't want to give up what you want most for what you want now. If you really want to win a chip, I don't think it behooves you to, in December, before even All-Star break, to submit yourself to Kyrie Irving, knowing that Kyrie Irving, he got all types of thoughts. So if you submit yourself to Kyrie Irving now, imagine what you might have to submit yourself to Kyrie, to what you might have to submit to later. Slick Rick, we got a few more seconds left. Final thought.
Yeah, look, I just believe that we always talk about culture. We always talk about standards with teams. And talent is part of the equation, but talent alone does not get it done. And, Joy, that's where I think you're counting on, just let me put the best team out there. Well, I've seen the best team not win, but I've seen the most cohesive team, the team that's most committed together, that carries the same principles. I've seen those teams overcome talent.